Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to see how we can set up a Node.js server with GraphQL using Express. First, we will be needing our packages, our node modules, hence we will be using npm package manager to install our node modules and our necessary packages. We are going to need Express, we are going to need Express GraphQL, we are going to need GraphQL, and GraphQL tools, potentially. While this is installing, we'll be doing a simple server with GraphQL. Then we will move on into a bit of more complicated with products and users. We will see how mutations work, which are basically if we compare it to REST APIs, those are the update, delete, and insert. Mutations in GraphQL are once again update, insert, and delete. And we will be using queries, which are our get statements if we compare it to Rust. So now that we have our packages over here defined, I will just set it up to have MJS instead of CommonJS because I like MJS more. Pipe module. Here we go. So now that we set this up, all right. So let's start. We will now create a server.javascript file, and then we will start doing our application. So we are going to need to import Express from Express. Let me import the whole package. We are going to need GraphQL HTTP from Express GraphQL, and we are going to need a make executable schema from GraphQL tools. The make executable schema will create our schemas from strings basically. So let's initialize our app in Express. Let us define a port and let us try and listen to our port. Let's first see if this works. Now I'm just gonna run node server.js. What does this say? Da, da, da. Okay. We don't need that. We don't need to know that. So let us get a new window. Let us go into our localhost. As you can see, that is a side project that I'm working currently on. And you can see a lot of different stuff. Let's see if anything happens. I mean, we didn't define a port, so let me just do this. Then let's do simple recres, and then rest.send hello world. Try again. If I just do this, up.use, hello. Oh, I'm sorry. We had the wrong port. And then now we have our server. It doesn't really matter. We know that it accepts, so that's all that matters. So let's start setting up our GraphQL. So we're gonna work with string types. So our schema is going to be defined via strings, and that's how uh, more like Express GraphQL works. Hence, we are not going to have a schema file, let's say like this, where we will define our, let's say, product types like this. This is not how we're going to do it because Express GraphQL is not like that. I think if you did with Apollo servers, it will work like that. So let's start by using strings. As you can see, I am using GitHub Copilot, so it helps me a bit. So I'll have like a query. So the type query is basically a type where we define that Okay, the word hello can be queried. So those are our gets comparing to the REST API. And then we have a type mutation where we can say that when a message is passed to our hello function called from our GraphQL, it will return a string. All right. So these are basic types. It's a definition of our schema where we can expect where our queries and mutations. It's just a simple definition of our schema. Like if you would use an ORM or Prisma, for example, you would define types. It's more like TypeScript types, basically. So we'll then define resolvers. So resolvers are like uh, the expectations or required parameters. Here we are going to define our functions and the behaviors of them. So let's see more in depth, right? Let's define our first resolver, which is a query, where we say hello, and it is going to return our hello world. So this is how we expect this query to behave, right? So matching this to here, you can see that we are sending a string. And then we're going to have our mutation. It just a simple string. So when we call hello in our GraphQL, we'll just return hello world. Then we will have our mutation. Sorry. Okay. We'll define once again hello. The first parameter is, don't mind the first parameter when you do it. It usually returns undefined and is not important. And our hello data is where our data sent from our GraphQL will be located in. And then let's say if we were to define we could return we'll just return a simple hello data. The message is what we'll get passed down to from our GraphQL if when we enter, let's say here, when we enter a hello, hello, this is the hello message will get passed down to here. So we are going to return hello message plus let's say from server. So we know that when we call our query, it is from the server. If you saw that little shift here, Control S, it is just my prettifier, my formatting working for me. You can also get that extension from, there are extensions tabs in VS Code. It is called a prettier code formatter. So after we have defined our resolvers, we'll then now define our GraphQL query. So what are our GraphQL endpoint. So since we are only focusing on the server end, we are not really going to have any client showing our information from our APIs. Hence, we will have this is called a GraphQL playground, where we will be able to query our data and format our queries as necessary to get the data that we need. So, GraphQL HTTP, thank you. Our copilot will define our schema where we say that, okay, we want to make our type definitions, which our resolvers use, and we want to make it as a schema. So a schema, like once again, is what GraphQL understands for to be able to match and query our information, our database information, or our whatever hard-coded information we are using. And then we'll just say that we are using GraphQL true. And it's as simple as that. So I'll likely let us node server.js once again. Let's see if we get any errors. String, do you mean string? Where is this again? Unknown type string. Unknown type string. unknown type string. Oh, over here. Yeah. So you see, we got an error telling us that, hey, we have the wrong type. It's string capital and not string lowercase. So let's rerun our server. Things are going to happen as we do the tutorial. I have a lot of browsers open. This is my recording one. Let's go here. And then if we do slash GraphQL, I also have my panel of codes that I already have done to help us go more in depth and for us to have a more smoother process of defining our endpoints. So as you can see, this is our GraphQL endpoint that we had, and it is our playground that we have. So let's say we want to get a query. Let's say remember our hello, and then if we click play, our hello world. So what happens is that we define the resolver, we define the type that our hello will return a string, and then we say that, hey, when we call this, you will return a hello world. And if we change this from server, you can see that it's quickly updating what isn't. How interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, because we have not, since we are using Node, we have to rerun our server every single time. And as you can see, a quick update and our update happened. And if you can imagine that if our database updated itself, then this query would also update for the user and they would have the latest information as well. So we can also have a mutation. So a mutation, this is how you define a mutation. You say, okay, we want a mutation. We want to call, remember our hello function here that we defined, right? Our type here. So hello, we will define the message here. Our message, we will say that it is I am GraphQL. And then if we send it to our backend, remember how we defined that it returns from server, so it returns I am GraphQL from server. All right. So this is a simple basic Node.js setup with GraphQL. And now we are going to go more forward into our GraphQL API and have more users and products. All right. So let's create another server.js. Well, let's call it server2.js. And obviously all of this code will be available to you guys from a repository. So keep that in mind. If you want to go back and check to it, you can always do that. I will put the provided links down below and you will see. I will also put a link from Free Code Camp Academy. That is a very interesting blog that you can look for to also have an idea on how client-side gets implemented with server. It is a Node and React app, so you will see GraphQL implemented more thoroughly. So now that we have this server, we'll query and mutate our products. So we'll create a folder called products. We will then create two files called products.model.js, which will be our schema basically, and then we'll call products.service.js. So here we'll define a class called product, ID, we'll say 0, name, let's go like this, or more or less, let me just really quick copy paste it here. So we now have like a class that we have an ID, a name, a description, a price, and we have the constructor that just sets us up our class in our service. So our service is going to be a bit more complicated. So let's go through this. So our service, we will have a class called product service, which will have an array of products. This is temporary since in our real scenario we would obviously fetch from a database, but since this is a quick tutorial, we are not fetching from our database and we are not complicating things even further. So let us go more on. As you can see, we have a product service. This is where you can see that we have the same thing, our type definitions and our resolvers, which if you remember, we defined for a simple one over here. So it is the same concept. So we define a function called config type definitions, and we're saying that here we have a type product, which has a name, string, description string, an ID, which is an int, and a price, which is an int. We extend our type definitions, so plus equal, we add on to this. We extend our type query, meaning that we have this and we want to also be able to query another thing instead of hello. So that is why we use the keyword extend to be able to extend our type query. So we'll be able to query our products in the format of a product class defined in our products model. Then we add another type definition, which is the same concept as the extend type query. We're extending our type mutation, which we defined here. So we want to have another type of mutation that we are able to do. And then we say that we accept the product. We have, like we said, a function product. So we would call it like this, product. As you can see, it already maps our stuff to our server, so it is easier. Product, and we would here call, ID 12012 and stuff, and we would define it ourselves. So we'll have a name string, ID int, description, a price, and it will eventually return a product. And then we return the type definitions. You will see why. Next, we have another function called config resolvers, where we accept a resolver, right? And to that resolver, we are going to add a query with products, which is a function which return all these products. It is the same concept as in resolvers here. We just want a query that returns a string, and instead of string, we're returning all of our products. Same thing here, a mutation, where when we give it a product, it will update our product list, and it will return our product. This will be like a temporary caching system for us to be able to see each time we run our server. It's not persistent data, so every time we close it, our data will be erased, obviously. But when we mutate our data from our GraphQL and get it back, we will see our mutated data that we have inserted into our temporary products class. So this is a simple product service for our GraphQL. Next, with the same concept, we are going to define a users. Wrong place, let's move it. Users. We will define once again, a users.model.js and a users.service.js. The naming here obviously is you are able to change it, but I like using the same namings here to be able to understand that here's my model, here's my service. Yeah. So our user model will have a simple user. So we'll have a class user with ID, first name, last name, email, password, and permission level. This is a basic user that you can find in any production or any actual websites where we have permissions, passwords, emails, first names, and the ID that is automatically generated. But in our case, we'll manually type it here. As you noticed, I put it in the wrong file. It should be in the user model. And our service will be, once again, like our product service, it will have the same functions and it will have the same functionality as our products. So we'll have a temporary users, so the same thing with products. We have the same config type definitions where we define the type user with all of its types. You can see that how this and our model are very closely related. It is very important to have them related, since if anything is wrong here, our class will not work, nor will our GraphQL, meaning that we will always have crashes. Next, we're adding to our query to be able to query users, and we are adding mutation to be able to add users to our temporary users. And next, there we define the body of our types. So the body of our type users will be returning all users, and the body of our type mutations will be, this is like a hashing. We're hashing the password here. So you can obviously see that we are able to do different calls here. We might want to like call to database to save user, as you can see. But instead of doing that, we're just pushing it to our users. Now, we have our user service and our product service. We'll now go to our server2.js and we'll define our more complicated server. So, we have the same thing as before. We're going to add a couple of things. Our services. We want to let GraphQL know that we want for these services to be taken into account and for these queries to be able to take into account, so our users and us in our playground are able to do this. So let's go user services, service equals new user service. We'll then add to our type definitions. As you can see, we're using the same syntax, our config types, right? Because we want because since we are using type definitions here for our GraphQL, we want to make sure that our types in our defined here are used. Sorry, taking a break and drinking a water. Drink a water, kids. It's very important. Next, we have our products. Now, since we added our type definitions, what do we need to do next? Anyone, can you think of it? I'll give you a second. We need to configure our resolvers. Since now we only have our type definitions in our bodies, we'll need to have our resolvers. Hence, we are going to do a products.service configure service resolvers and configure our user service resolvers. So when we pass our resolver to this, I'm very sorry for the interruption. Something happened. Okay, let's go back to it. So our configure resolvers, we have to configure our resolvers, correct? Since now in here we define our type definitions, we need to define how are they going to execute and how are they going to function. That is why we pass our resolvers defined here to our class, to our service resolvers over here, which will add on to our current resolvers and then make it available to our GraphQL. Once again, resolvers are just the functionality and the body of our types that we define. So now we are ready to run our application again, and we are almost done with the tutorial. We already have a GraphQL setup, but we are going to work with it a bit. What is this? Products.service.js. Hello. What do you want? What you want? What is happening here? I don't understand. Maybe like that. Where's my users? Like that. Node again. Alright, it was just missing some dependencies. My VS Code has been acting a bit buggy lately. Alright, but that doesn't matter. Now we have our GraphQL. So, fail. See, now that it understands that we have our product. Before, when we did this, I was showing the product here was not, GraphQL wouldn't recognize, pardon me. So now we can have multiple different queries and different mutations. Alright, so let's have a mutation and let's add a product. Let's name it, let's say my body wash. This is the name of our product basically. 100, and then price, let's say is 12.99. It does not accept, it is integers, that's why it's not accepting. If it were double, it would accept it. So what does it say? Masterhouse, did you mean product? Yes, I meant product. And then if you get the ID, so see, we get the ID of this, meaning that we created our body wash and we requested for it to send us back the ID. And then if we also do price and name, let's change our name. So we did our first mutation where it returned our ID. We're gonna do my body wash number 2, and then let's make it 200. And as you can see, if everything works perfectly, it will return back our wanted item. So this is how we did a mutation. So now we have 2 products in our product services array. Keep that in mind. Now, let's define a query for our products. We define a query like this. We specify what we want to query, products, and we specify the fields that we want to have, right? So, as you can see, the query here, this query will map to over here. We'll go into product service. It will map to this query. This is the type, products, right? Products, products. You can see similarities here. And then it will go into here and it will return all of our products, which we defined here. It will return all of our products, and these are the fields that we want to return. And if you run, you can see that, hey, it's very good, right? We have our body wash number 2, our body wash number 1. You can see how good it is and how exact data it returns. Because with REST APIs, we had to fetch all of our products, and we had to, at the same time, get their, what did you define here? Get the description as well. But now we don't want the description to be sent to all the user for us to fetch. So we only want the ID, name, and price, which becomes very efficient. Next, let's query some of our users. But before that, let's see an example of descriptions. Here, see, it's null. We can really play around and just get the data that we actually need, which is where GraphQL really becomes useful and really becomes strong. I think that, in my opinion, GraphQL needs to be more widely used since it is more recent and people don't really have. There's a lot of REST APIs out there that need to be migrated to uh, GraphQL because REST APIs are becoming more inefficient with larger and complex applications. However, with simpler applications, like I think everyday projects or projects for like users for or just developers in general, it doesn't really matter. Let's say Josh at Marcos at gmail.com. I might have misspelled it here. Yeah. And then let's say return ID. So as you can see, we created a mutation while I was talking. We made a user, and we just wanted to return the ID to verify that we did indeed create the user. Here we can see, let's go David Silva. Let's go Ronaldinho. Most misspelled it, but Ronaldinho Messi. We'll have that, and let's say ID 100. So we did create another one. So now we have 3 users. Keep that in mind. And once again, I will leave you guys for a second to define your own query for users. And I hope you paused the video and did it on your own. And now we'll define our own query. So ID, first name, last name. Let's get all in these three fields. As you can see, we got our Marco Silva, our David Silva, and our Ronaldinho Messi. This GraphQL, once again, is very powerful. And that is pretty much it, my friends. This was how we do Node.js with GraphQL. And this code will be available down below in the GitLab or GitHub repository. There will also be some links to some blogs for you to be more aware of GraphQL and to understand it in depth. There will also be, like I mentioned, Free Code Academy, uh, the Free Code Academy blog where there is also work with client and server, which is really great in my opinion, and you should really follow through that as well to have a more solid understanding of how GraphQL works and to touch a bit on the front end as well. And like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.